Damn, that's good. Alright guys, hey, have you ever been to your favorite barbecue spot and you got that good cut of brisket and we get those burnt ends and they're just so soft and jiggly and just, I mean, just utter perfection, just succulent and all that? That's fantastic, right? Yeah, this ain't that. This right here, this is poor man's burnt ends. That's right, guys. It's not the same as brisket. We all know that. But chuck roast posing as brisket or burnt ends, it's definitely a good alternative. These right here are really good, guys. So I'm going to show you today how to make poor man's brisket burnt ends. Alright guys, so hey, that's right. We are going to make poor man's burnt ends today. Now, we're going to be using chuck roast for this, guys. And so what I'm going to suggest for you that are going to try this recipe, if you haven't already, look for some good chuck roast with a lot of fat in it. You want some good striations of fat throughout the meat, and that's what's going to give this just a nice just jiggle to it and great flavor once we get it on the pit and get it smoked away and get all of those connective tissues broken down. So make sure you get you a really good fatty chuck roast if you can find one. All right, so enough talking about it, let's be about it. Let's get into this recipe. All right, let's go. All right guys, so our first layer that we're going to get put on this chuck roast is going to be our SPG from Sucker Busters, and we're just going to give it a good even coating here. Sucker Busters SPG is a really good blend. I find that it works really well on a lot of different cuts as a base layer, so that's why I use it. Great flavor. Alright, so we got that SPG on there. We're just going to take the sides of the chuck roast and kind of wipe some of this up off the board. And then we're going to come back with Sucker Busters 1836 beef rub, guys. And this one has a gray flavor to it as well. It's got a little color to it. It's got some coarse peppers in it. And it's just a good beef blend. So I like using this one as well. So that's what we're going to do. And again, we're going to use the sides of the chuck roast to pick up the seasoning that's on our board. Maybe touch up a little bit of spots there. And now we've got this chuck roast all seasoned up. Alright, so today we are going to be using our Louisiana Grills Black Label 1200 to do these burnt ends on with the chuck roast. So we're going to be running it today with our competition blend pellets, and we're going to be running the pit temperature today at 275 degrees. So it's time for us to get this chuck roast on, guys, and let's get this cook going. Alright, let's go. Alright, so we are going to be using our top shelf today. So I'm just going to place this right in the center of our grill. Again, we're running at 275, and we'll get this closed up. And I'll bring you guys back in a little while. Alright gang, so hey, we're about an hour and a half into this cook, and just kind of want to explain what we're doing here. We're basically going to be cooking this chuck roast kind of like a brisket. Obviously the times are not going to be the same as a brisket. It's a much smaller cut, so it's going to cook a lot faster, and that's what makes cooking a chuck roast a perfect cut for if you're going to practice making brisket. So what we're doing here is we're going to look for an internal temperature to be about 160, 165 degrees. And once we get to that temperature, we're going to go ahead and wrap this chuck roast up. Now today we're going to be using butcher paper. Why? Because butcher paper allows for a more firm bark. I particularly like a more firm bark when I'm making beef, brisket, ribs, things of that nature. So I tend to use butcher paper, but if you're a foil kind of person and you don't really care about that firm bark and you like a softer bark, by all means go for it with aluminum foil. But we're going to be using some butcher paper. So we're going to go over here to our Black Label 1200. We're going to check our temperature, and again, if we're between 160 and 170, we're going to get this chuck roast off. We're going to get it wrapped up, and we'll get it back on so we can kind of break this meat down, get it nice and tender to make these burnt ends. All right, so let's go check our temperature. All right, and it looks like we're looking pretty good here. Got some good color The rub is set. We're going to check our temperature here. And it looks like we're about 163 degrees there, so we're looking pretty good, guys. 168 on the ends. So I think it's definitely time to go ahead and get this chuck roast off, so let's get it wrapped. Alright gang, so the way we're going to wrap this is we're just going to set it right on our butcher paper like so, and we're just going to wrap it over just as if we were doing a brisket. So there you go, all wrapped up. We're gonna get it back on the grill. All right, we set it right on the grill just like so. We're gonna let this keep going. All right guys, so hey, now we got our chuck roast wrapped up in our butcher paper. It's back on our grill. We're still rolling at 275. And what are we looking for now is you're looking for the tenderness. You know, once we get to that tenderness that we want, my tenderness can be different from your tenderness. It's just what feels good for you. Right now, we just need that time for all of those connective tissues inside this chuck roast to break down, which is going to give you that good tenderness that you want when you're making burnt ends or even brisket. So basically, we're just going to let this thing break down. Now, if you absolutely need a temperature for reference, I would tell you look for about a 200-degree mark. Once you get to between 195 200 on your internal temperature, that's when you want to probably start focusing on getting that tenderness just right for yourself. Once it feels good for you, 200 degrees or so, that's when we're going to move on to the next step, guys. So hey, we're going to let this rest away inside this black label, and I'll bring you back in a little while. All right guys, it's been about an hour and 10 minutes since we wrapped up our chuck roast, so let's get a temperature check here, see where we're at. And we're right at 202.3, looks like 203 there, and it's still feeling pretty good. So I think we're going to go ahead and get this pulled off of here and get on to our next step. Alright gang, so we've got our chuck roast here, and we've got it on our cutting board. It's been resting for about 10 minutes or so, and we're going to go ahead and get this out of the butcher paper. Smells amazing, guys. Alright, so because we use butcher paper, we were able to retain our bark for the most part on this. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and get this cut up. And I'm going to be using my Dow Strong knife here, but use whatever knife you have available. But we're going to go ahead and give it a cut. And as you can see here, we got a nice little smoke ring that actually developed for us. So, hey, bonus. Now all you want to do here is you just want to kind of cut your chuck roast into your 1-inch cubes. Just basically into your bite sizes that you're going to want to do for your burnt ends. You can go bigger than that, you can go smaller than that. It's all a personal preference. Do what you feel like you want to do. Okay, so now that we got this all cut up, we're going to put it into our foil pan here. Okay, so now we've got our burnt ends here, our poor man's burnt ends, put into our aluminum foil here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a little brown sugar on top of this. So we're going to put some of this in here. And you can put as little or as much as you like. Next up, we're going to put some barbecue sauce in, guys, and feel free to use whatever barbecue sauce is your preference. But we're going to put some barbecue sauce in here. And then we're just going to kind of mix everything through gently. And you can use as much sauce or as little sauce as you want as well. There's no right or wrong with this. It's all personal preference, guys. All right, so now that we've got this all coated in our brown sugar and our barbecue sauce, we're gonna return this to the grill. So let's take this back over to our Black Label and let's get it on. All right, so we got it back on our grill here, and we're gonna continue at 275 and let it go. Alright guys, so let's do a recap of what we did with today's cook. So we decided we're going to make some poor man's burnt ends out of chuck roast. So we got us a prime chuck roast from our local HEB today, and we got it seasoned up with suckle busters. We went all team suckle busters today. So we used SPG as a nice little base layer to put on this chuck roast, and then we followed it up with 1836 beef rub. Once we got our chuck roast all seasoned up, got the rub on, we got it onto our Louisiana Grills Black Label 1200. Now today we're running our Black Label 1200 at 275 degrees, and we're also using our championship blend B&B pellets today. After about an hour and a half of having this chuck roast on our pit, we reached an internal temperature of about 165 degrees, at which time we went ahead and got it wrapped up. Now we used butcher paper today because I like a little more firm bark, but feel free to use aluminum foil if you don't mind your bark being a little softer. So we got it wrapped up in our butcher paper and we returned it to our Black Label 1200, and we continued to roll at 275 degrees. So after about another hour and 10 minutes or so, we pulled this chuck roast off of our pit and we let it rest for about 10 minutes or so. After it rested, we got our chuck roast sliced up. You know, you kind of want to slice them into the bite-sized pieces that you want for your burnt ends. Typically a 1 by 1, 1 inch by 1 inch cube is what most people go for. So once we got our chuck roast all sliced up, we put it into a foil pan. Once we had it in the foil pan, we added a little brown sugar to it and some barbecue sauce. Now again, completely optional guys, you don't have to use the brown sugar if you don't want to, and the barbecue sauce, use whatever you decide you want to use. You can use as little or as much as you want. It's all personal preference. Once we got our burnt ends all into that barbecue sauce and that brown sugar mixture, we returned it to our pit. Again, we're still rolling at 275 degrees and we're giving it about 20 minutes. We want that sauce and that brown sugar to kind of meld together and adhere to these burnt ends really well and just make them good morsels of just succulent goodness. So after that, we pulled these burnt ends off the pit to let them rest, and now you're completely caught up with what we did with today's cook. So hey, let's go check out these burnt ends, all right? Let's go. All right guys, so here's our burnt ends and they're looking pretty good. We still got a nice little bark there on the exterior part of this chuck roast, and it's just looking and smelling really good. And man, we just got to go ahead and get in here and we got to taste some of this. So here's what we got. So let's take a taste of it. Alright guys, so hey, before I bite into this, as I always tell you in my videos, if you like what you saw here and you can appreciate it, you want to check out more, click on the videos I've got listed right here, as well as click that subscribe button up there. I'll see you in the next video guys. Cheers. Poor man's burnt ends. Oh man.